Wow, I don't know what that was. Just a second. I'm still like rubbing my eyebrows. I don't know where that came from. I usually have a countdown to 30, and then we have something that looks kind of like in between Halloween, Harry Potter, and Richard Stanley. I Life is full of surprises. So, hi everybody. My name is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5, broadcasting out of the city of New Orleans. And we are FM. And also, we are on Roku, we are on YouTube and Facebook, and also on the UPRN Talk Radio website. And wow, I'm still kind of reeling about that introduction. I don't know if I pushed the wrong button or what, but um, here we are. And we have Corina Chrysler on today. And I'm going to bring her on because I'm so dumbfounded. I don't have anything witty to say. The intro was witty enough for me, I suppose. Hey, Karina. I don't know if you saw that.
I
I
did.
think I pushed the wrong introduction button, but I thought I pressed the right one.
It
It's
looked
really
like a
great to have you on the
promotion or
show.
something. I'm like, it's
We
like entering a portal. I'm like, this is perfect for me.
Exactly. You see, Karina, I got to meet Karina because she rented a room at the house that I rent a room in France. And she was writing, she was doing her horoscope work, and she had a strong desire to go to lots of sacred sites, just like I did, and just like I do. And so we would hang out and do all kinds of unexpected metaphysical happenings all throughout this area of France. I guess it makes us, it's kind of we've done this before, I think.
Yes. No, it was a blessing that because I never book a shared place ever in my travels, and I was like,
Mhm.
this place feels good. And then when I met you, and then our first journey, I was like, this is all meant to be perfect.
Yeah, as we say in Texas, we were running buddies.
Yeah.
That was kind of it. But as I got to know Karina, I got to really know what a master astrologer she was. And not only in common astrology, but Vedic astrology. Am I correct to say that?
not not
Vedic.
like more Egypt. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like more ancient.
More
Yeah,
ancient. And then you
yeah.
went into ancient Egyptian astrology, and we're just talking on and on about Egypt, which I was getting like a course in it. And then she ups and moves to Egypt and gets married and has a great life in Egypt, and now is coming out with the book, the four gateways. No, the gateways of the four goddesses.
The four gateways of the goddess. Yeah.
Yes, which will be coming out in October, and I've been reading it. You know, the thing with Egyptian stuff, and when you read people talk about Egypt, it's a very intellectual, scientific, historical standpoint, and
Mhm.
it feels very dense. And usually, after about 15 minutes of reading one of those books, I'm like going for a cup of coffee or putting it down or taking a nap. And this book is a page turner because you put it in such a common sense format. You're not American, you're Canadians, but you know, we kind of have the same slang and stuff. So I just thought it was great.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good to hear. It's good to hear.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
normally the way I talk about things, sometimes I am a little too esoteric. So I've had to. I really wanted to make this like a practical guide because that's exactly what it is, a practical guide to take you through these gates with these goddess archetypes. So,
But that's the problem with Egyptian knowledge, is we don't have the common basis a lot of times that we need to
yeah,
format it into our own head. And call me, learning disabled or whatever. I'm not offended, but I needed something like this. With one of the first concepts you bring into the book is the goddesses aren't people. And when we think of goddess, and most of us, have had some sort of a Christian, Jesus, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, etc. background, and those were real people.
yes.
However, the goddesses of Egypt are different.
Yeah, and that was something I really had to unlearn, when I moved here. Luckily I'm married to, Hakeem Awyan, who is just like a, you know, living within a mystery school type of life. Um, who, did never he was really gentle with his way of teaching me, but um his grandfather is really the one that sort of brought this to light. But to look at the gods and the goddesses as aspects of nature, like they're living parts of the universe that we're not separated from. And that was his whole point with everything, is really understanding, our potential and what we're really connected to, and that we have all of these aspects within us, and the long game of separation from that type of power, right? Because that's essentially what it is. This type of information, this type of knowledge is very powerful.
It
So
is.
of course yeah. So of course they've separated us from this type of archetypal wisdom that we have within us, because what happens when we really connect with that is us being within ourselves too, and within nature that we are around and surrounded by all the time.
Yes, and I think one of the things is, like, when you talk about Hathor being
Mm-hmm.
the goddess of, I guess, of the universe, and then Nut is the goddess of the sky.
Yeah.
You're talking of a collective conscious energy and something, which really brings me to the fact, because a lot of us do energy work and we want to connect with the stars or the earth, or you know these elemental beings, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so when we start to say, I would like to connect with Nut, maybe the Egyptians have created a collective consciousness where there's a kind of like a beingness in their relationship with the sky itself, because
Yeah.
that's kind of like the key to get into that reality.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Like when you always see Newt with her feet touching the ground and her hands touching the ground and her sky, like an archway, in the sky coming down. And that's a perfect example of thinking of embodying the sky, or the whole concept that Egyptians really hold on to, is that as above so below, as within so without. Even within that, her energy, it's still not separated from the earth. It's all part of one big thing. But the way to create that embodiment with Newt would be to have a type of consciousness of what happens when you look at the sky, when you connect to the stars, when you look at the sun, when you follow astrology, because astrology for me has never been wrong. So when you have that interconnectedness with that type of energy, then it just is going to empower that part of yourself.
Indeed. It you become it, as you have all your years. How long have you been studying astrology? I mean, almost like when I talk to you, there's such a confidence and security and knowingness. It's like you just wonder if you didn't, you know, like start in preschool or something.
Yeah. Well, one astrologer that I met with, a really famous one, said your birth chart shows what type of astrologer you are. And my birth chart is definitely has a part of it that has a very strong connection to information or being able to connect to resonance from past lives. So there is that inner knowing, I think, that I have. But I started like following the moon cycles when I was in my late teens, and did moon ceremonies, did a lot of women's circles until I became like a professional astrologer, was in my mid 30s. So about 10 years I've been a professional astrologer. And I have a bit of a different way of reading. There is an intuitive part to it as well. And I think that's maybe a missing piece in modern astrology is it's an art form. It's a reading a birth chart is looking at all the energies and the cycles within the cycles, and the wheel as itself as something, as a path, of our personal evolution. So that's what I attach a lot of my way of how I do it. But yeah, for about 10 years, I've been a professional astrologer.
And when you see a chart, from what I can tell, in which you gave me a reading just because I was your running buddy, but you seem to like. Well, let's see. Another person calls it your greatest limiting emotion, but you seem to connect to some of the great fears that people have. Or, you talked about it with Sekhmet, which you had to go into the goddesses here, but it's that path of like, if you know your greatest fear, you're really, that's a great asset, although it may be painful. You may not like it. However, I see it as pretty valuable.
Yeah.
And you see that in people.
Yeah. So when I first started reading charts, and I wasn't taught this, it was just something that came to me, was pain and fear. And staying in that cycle of pain and fear. Because a lot of times it's subconscious or, repressed. You're trying to cope, you're trying to achieve goals, you're trying to find love, you're just trying to like get through the day sometimes. So so sometimes it's just as something we don't face, but it's the thing that once we face it, that changes everything. And that's really what the gates are about too. The gates are about like facing these big things in our life that are evolutionary, that take us through the next sort of phase or stage or the next level of enlightenment,
Indeed. We want to say hello to Mort Ali. And if anybody has questions for Corina, just bring them onto the chat. So true. And when we talk about the 4 gateways of the goddesses, maybe we ought to just give a little bit of overview about the goddesses. And once again, it's given me a whole different idea of what Isis really is all about. Yeah. Just by reading the first 2 chapters of your book.
Thank you. Well, I guess so first of all, this book came out because of a mentorship I did, a group. I used to do small groups with women. And the last one I did, one of the girls who's quite successful said, you need to put this in a format that is accessible to more people, like a book or a course or something. And then I have actually a client of mine who publishes books that I talk to, and she's like, I'll help you with this. Let's do it. So it was kind of interesting how it came about, but how the concept in general came about is I'm all about the gates. So I'm all about the evolutionary gates. I see them everywhere. Egypt is full of them. The gateways are or the
So,
doors, they call them
so,
too here, are,
yeah,
you know, the places that
somebody,
people went to,
can you give us a definition of that?
sorry, go ahead.
Can you give us a definition of that so a non-Egyptian astrology type of person would have a better idea? What's a gateway? Are you there?
I am. You kind of cut up. So give
Okay,
you a
I say, well,
definition.
what's a gateway? Yeah.
So so in astrology, the wheel, the birth chart wheel, has like a cross. And these are called squares in astrology that create like challenges. But these the lines that represent the actual cross in the wheels are a gateway, an evolutionary gate. So the first one is the IC, which, you know, is the polar opposite of the midhaven, and then you have the ascendant and the descendant. So people read these areas of the chart with like significance, but as an evolutionary astrologer, this is like always where I go, especially in your transits. When you have a big transit that's going to cross one of these gates, this is usually a pretty intense time of, you know, whatever theme is coming up around that gate to sort of like push through those practical applications of that gateway to get to the other side. So to get to the next side of that evolutionary cycle. So that's the gate of the birth chart. But when you come to Egypt, the gates are everywhere too. So then I started being like, okay, so these gates are following me. And then what happened is I came into contact with these 4 protective goddesses. And they're in several tombs. They're very predominant in the Valley of the Kings and the Queens. And I'm like, 4 protective goddesses. Like, King, what's this about? And he's like, well, these are the goddesses that the kings or the pharaohs use in protection for their life, but also in protection of the afterlife. And what kind of cued my interest about that is I'm like, so it's a feminine archetype that the masculine is using for protection, which isn't typically, you know, the way it works. It's usually the opposite way. And then this is what made me dive into these goddess archetypes and what they represented. And what I noticed is that the goddesses mirrored the actual gateways in the wheel. And then was like, because I'm always trying to apply in someone's birth chart like an archetype that is inspiring them at that time. So having this type of archetype within the gateway is a practical way to help somebody with those types of initiations. And that's what happened. So these 4 protective goddesses, they're strong feminine archetypes that take you through a pretty predominant initiation in your life.
Yes, and that they would be like Isis and Neith, Jeknet and Nephesis. Am I getting those right?
So
And they all have,
Nephthys,
and they all have aspects kind of what humans encounter, but they're general aspects.
Yeah.
And such. Like Neith is Weaver of Destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And Seknet is Holy Rage, the natural disasters. But when you apply that in your own life, you have to ask that question. It's like, well, what is Holy Rage for you?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what are those big fears that come in? And so when you look at that in an astrological chart, I mean, it gives you a lot more depth than what I would see in common astrology that we use in Western civilization.
Yeah, I think what I've identified with this pattern and this, you know, the symmetry between the two is that, you know, it's then using astrology not as a predictive tool, but more as a pathway, you know, more as a path to your embodiment and your in your empowerment. So using these goddesses is literally to activate your feminine power, in my opinion, because one of the things that, this is, I have a lot of unpopular opinions, but one of the unpopular opinions I have is how the goddess is represented, it like largely in our social constructs, like pretty, very sexualized, there's always a flower crown in the water, la la la. And that's definitely part of the feminine archetype. It's definitely part of the goddess. But the part that is missing is how destructive the goddess can be, her wildness, her rawness, going to the shadows, going to the darkness, healing this type of pain. And that to me is what women have been so separated from for so long, because it is power. It's very powerful. So these goddesses really represent that. They represent both parts, that, and that's what Hathor and Sekhmet are too. They're two polarities. Hathor is, the nurturing part, the playfulness, the, music and dancing and, sexual energy, where Sekhmet, her mirror, her counterpart, burns stuff down to clear the path. She wants blood.
Well, I keep reflecting upon that one with the Holy Rage, because I thought of my own story, if I may add it, because mine is about shame and never believing in yourself, standing back and not speaking out, lack of initiation, and not believing you can do it. So I did a ton of work on shame, and then a different fierceness shows up when you actually know that about yourself and you can deal with that.
Yeah.
However, when you start to see it in an astrological chart, you can start to see, I guess, cycles when it's going to be more intense, or periods of your life that you may be more confronted, or various other aspects.
Yeah. Like right now, like Virgo season is always a pretty tough season for a lot of people. And we're coming into an eclipse season too. We have a total lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th. And then one partial one in Virgo at 29 degrees, which is probably one of the toughest degrees in the whole birth chart, because it's right at the cusp of the gateway where we have to like rid the poison and the toxicity from our past experiences, from other people, the projections that other people have instilled on us that prevent us from really like stepping through that gateway on the solar path of like being seen, of this is who I am, this is what I want to do, this is what I've come here to accomplish. So it's a hard season. It's a hard gateway. It's probably one of the hardest gateways to cross, because what happens when we start shedding and releasing that, like what happens in our life, what relationships change, what changes maybe in our professional career, what changes in our emotional state. A lot changes when that happens. But think of it like being released from really what isn't yours to hold. So Virgo season and this gateway that we're in is totally illuminating the patterns that we stay in around this. And this is something to catch right now, especially on these eclipses, is where do I stay in a loop of maybe even diminishing my own power to make other people comfortable, or, all the patterns that we kind of stay in that sometimes keep us small, keep us hidden.
Just because, and a lot of it is just to take that first step and go, oh, Corina told me I have a really strong tornado of anger, and that's always been with me, and it's kind of a karma. And as I look in the Egyptian cycles, it's coming up. We may want to just start that step by saying, well, I'd like to just see what that is. What can it show me? And you don't have to go into the tornado to do it. It's about awareness.
Yeah.
And that's such a beautiful thing. One of the things that you're writing about in the book was about Pluto and Capricorn,
Yeah.
and that big transition there that's happening, 275-year transition of
Yeah.
Pluto and Capricorn, which is, it just mind boggles me, like, well, what has happened in the last 275 years?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that one to you.
Yeah.
What what do you see Pluto and Capricorn happening with us now?
So one of the good things is we're done, right? We're now in Aquarius, and it
Mm-hmm.
won't go back into Capricorn for another 200 years, which is good for us.
Oh, okay, I kind of missed that little concept. I thought it was coming in, but that makes more
Yeah,
sense because we got all
it's
the ugly stuff of Pluto uh, kind of still here a bit.
well, I think it's what's initiated a lot of the changes, and the reason why I put that in the book was like, why now? Why is it so important for women to reclaim their power in this aspect within them as well? And it is because this Pluto Capricorn transit. The Saturn was there too. Jupiter was there as well. The Saturn Jupiter Pluto transit um, happened right before the pandemic.
Okay.
So a lot was initiated in terms of looking at our internal structures, looking at the masculine energy that's being seen in the world, and looking at, how we can reclaim our authority, and that's what Pluto is. Pluto is the alchemist, it's the planet of power. So it went through Capricorn, totally dismantling what existed within that structure and within the systems that we've been in for so long. So now in Aquarius, it's about moving out what came up from that surface, what came out of those systems, and making it more of a collective energy. Last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the French, American, and Industrial Revolutions. So it's like a revolutionary energy that's happening now, but it had to go and sort of deconstruct a lot of
And
the
it,
systems that are in place.
in the words of Bob Dylan, it's a slow train coming.
That's right.
Uh, and it's a slow train exiting. So, I
Yeah.
keep always wondering, well, is the masculine going to get any more uncaring and brutal and uglier? And I've been asking that question for 20 years, maybe. Uh, but it keeps coming. But on the other end, you have the power of women and the rage of women.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like two big trains that are going to come together, hit each other in the head, or
I think
just go in the opposite directions?
no, I think masculine energy is changing because it's also being exposed, right? The corruption has always been there.
Yes.
The power has always been there. It's just been hidden for so long. And that was what Pluto did. It exposed everything. So we think, this time is really poisonous, but it's really been there for a very long time. So when you see things, you can unsee them. And I think it's
Yeah.
really important for men. I've been very lucky. I've surrounded myself by very beautiful, sacred men. My husband is one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever met. And I think it's people
He
like him
is.
that also can help change the masculine energy. But I think it's women have been, in such fear for such a long time to step into their power because let's face it, the last 3,000 plus years, it hasn't been safe for us to do that. And that's really where the mentorship of the book came from. It was like I could see this fear in really talented, just wise, beautiful women that had so much to share, but they're paralyzed to be able to show that, to showcase who they are, to stand in their gifts, to stand in their light.
Yeah, it's
And
almost like they're trying to move forward in a big way and get out there on the stage, but there's always something going, no, that really isn't you, or no, you're afraid of this, and that's
yeah,
gonna inhibit you.
yeah. Lots of times it's subconscious. And a lot of
Yeah.
times it's subconscious from, like, if you're an evolutionary astrologer, you believe in past lives, or, well, a lot of people believe in past lives, but in evolutionary astrology, you definitely believe that it is the evolution of the soul, not this lifetime, not this body. So if you believe in that concept, then of course you believe that you remember your lifetimes. So what we hold in the body, the fear that we hold in the body that we might not even be aware of, has such an influence on how we step into our power. So
So
when you,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No,
So
you
when
go
you
ahead.
work through these gateways, they're literally the gateways opening up those fears, those subconscious beliefs, really understanding, what our destiny is, what our magic is, when I stand in my authority and my light, what does this really mean? But we have to create awareness. We have to create a container for that to happen. To just do it is not going to work for most people.
Indeed. And I just want to make this comment, and then I have to go give a midpoint in the show. But, if you're a woman that really believes that you have something to say and
Mm-hmm.
that you're important, and somewhere there's something that keeps sabotaging you, something, belief that's holding you back, you might want to try to find out what that is,
Yeah,
because the world needs you.
yeah.
Uh, and at that point, I want to tell everybody that you are listening to Chris, Corina Crysler, Awyan,
Mm-hmm.
and her website is Corina Crysler, and her new book is The Four Gateways of the Goddess. She is an
Mm-hmm.
Egyptian and astrologer, healer through these mystical arts. Um, and my name is Bart Sharp, and this is Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5 FM out of New Orleans. And let's change the topic a little bit, because you know I am really baffled about Isis as I read this book. You know, because she's like the mother of 1,000 names, and I'm thinking about, well, if I try to see uh, Isis as not something as a being, but as a energetic presence, much like Sek, Sekhmet or Nut or Hathor. Could you just give me a little bit of idea what that magical presence of Isis could be or would be or shows up
Yeah,
as in your life?
yeah. So she's, the great mother in Egypt. The mother of Horus. So she's has that archetype of birthing. But her story of her energy is being able to resurrect Osiris. And where you look at sort of this gateway that she's at, she helps us sort of reclaim the pieces of ourselves that might have been scattered or misplaced or forgotten, to bring us back into a wholeness. And in this wholeness, this is where we peak in our light in the birth chart. It's usually where we find our greatest accomplishments because of it. We're in our whole light energy, and it's usually when we find our greatest ambition, our deepest authority to sort of like take our talents and our gifts, because we feel whole, because all those pieces that might have been riddled in shame or guilt or fear, we've reclaimed them, to become our truest essence. And this is when the magic happens. This is when we can sort of take our power and utilize it in a way that the world sees. So she's usually talked about, with magic in general, but the way I've interpreted her is, being able to understand wholeness in a really profound way of self, to be able to claim that space, to be in the light.
So how would you work with Isis? I mean, including with an astrological reading, but how do you summon her or bring her as a part of you?
Mastery.
Yeah.
Mastery. Yes. It's what will bring you towards her, at least, is first being like, okay, what is the solar path? Like, if I'm going to step in this aspect of light of who I am and what my purpose is here, what does that look like? And then how am I going to do it? So you have to have a little bit of, there's definitely action in this part. Some of the goddesses are more about surrendering and letting the energy flow. But Isis is definitely an aspect of action, of stepping into our personal mastery. So what have I come here to do, to teach, to learn? And what can I do
so it's really
become a master within that? Because that's exactly what she was.
So these are my notes. Seshet is the keeper of records of time.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be horrible with these names. Please forgive me. Nephis is the darker aspects of feminine power. Sekhmet, holy rage, natural disasters. Neith, the weaver of destiny. And then we have Isis, mother of thousand names, and magic. When I read that sequence, it's kind of like you want to master all of these different types of goddess concepts that are your internal journey.
Yeah.
And you see these in charts.
I see it as charts. So someone like myself, who has pretty much everything in the 12th house, 12th and 6th house. So Neith is at the 12th house gateway, between the 12th house and the 1st house. So, what her initiation is completely my, initiation in this lifetime, and being able to use her as an archetypal energy to activate within myself is the power of the wheel. Mm-hmm. So you have to know your birth chart in ways to really understand, what gateway am I at? Like, what archetype am I working with now? But you can also use the transits of the sky now. So like I was talking before, Virgo season, natural gateway is Selkit. So, you can empower yourself with the transiting in the sky, because that's how astrology works anyways. It opens that light within us of that planetary or that constellation archetype to, activate our nervous system and our remembering.
Wow. That's an interesting concept, to activate our nervous system and remembering.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because a lot of times, even when you look at like manifestation, we can only co-create, we can only bring into our life what our nervous system is going to let us expand into. And this is the journey of the wheel too. This is the journey of healing and understanding self. And what have I come here to? We always have our wound, Chiron, in our chart. Yes. So there's always the wound to work on. And it's layers, it's lifetime. This is no weekend retreat. This is us going into this layer by layer by layer by layer. And then looking at the energy of like walking through like each part of these gateways in our evolutionary cycles. So
I would
if you pay attention to the sky, you'll activate that energy within for sure.
indeed, as I was, as we've done this before, I was laying out at Peak de Bogarash, this Stargate Mountain, and we lay out on this piece of land that you look out at the mountain and you see all the stars in the sky. And as you lay there and see the stars, they go into your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and relax you into that reality. And it's something that we really want to pay attention to is our nervous system and the parasympathetic. And what makes the parasympathetic become dormant more in our active part of our life is trauma.
Yeah.
And we have to go into this and really see what that trauma is, and have these knowing of when to do it. When is it going to come up with that? What cycle of the moon is this? Am I more susceptible to it? Am I above it? All of
Yeah.
this stuff really matters.
Yeah. And in astrology, you can really see when the challenges start, when you're in a challenging time to look at a certain cycle. Or, when you have your Chiron return around 50 is a big one to look at. Did I look at this wound at all? Or am I going to have to look at it now? Because that's usually what happens. You have some awareness of the wound. When you have your Chiron return, it's usually like the second phase of your life. It's like, I've gone through it. Now I'm going to, now that I know what I know, I'm going to enjoy my life. But if you've ignored that wound or you didn't look into it at all, it tends to be, a brick wall.
Yeah, it's kind of like, being that I'm over 50, I can speak from experience. It's kind of like holding a really big boulder for the rest of your life while you try to relax and do all the things that you feel like you worked for and earned and deserved as you get older. And you're still carrying the rock, folks.
Yeah.
And you got to see what that face is.
Yeah.
Sekhmet loves you.
Sekhmet's my mama. So when I first came to Egypt, a personal story, when I first came to Egypt, right before I met Hakeem, like days before I met Hakeem, I went into her temple. And this is like, my wish for everyone is to experience this temple. And what I heard was, "Are you ready?" That's all I heard. "Are you ready?" And I said yes, not even thinking about it. And then literally my whole entire life changed. The things I thought were moving forward, I was single, I was in Canada, I was on these other pathways with projects with other people, it all got, dissolved. The new path was formed, and this path that I didn't even think of in my wildest dreams came in front of me, but you have to be ready with Sekhmet. You have to be ready that sometimes the clearing isn't easy. We hold on to things, we hold on what we know, we hold on what we think is familiar, what we think we want. But she gives you what you need to be in alignment with your truth and your power. And that often isn't easy to stand in at the beginning of this. It's an initiation. She is the energy of an initiation period.
And those periods happen differently for different people at different times with different intensities. So it's good to kind of know when your cycles are coming around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to know your birth chart. It is your cosmic map. It is like literally your composition. And even if you don't have to understand astrology to know it either. And even working with the gateways in the book will showcase, a part of your life, a part of your cosmic blueprint that you maybe didn't know of before.
Yeah.
By the questions that are being asked, by the practices, by the meditations, whatever. There's a whole very practical aspect to it. Um,
Yeah. And if even if you just get some of these basic concepts, I'm more of a conceptual person and see the big pictures of things by just reading a few amount of words. I don't know if it's a gift or it's just my laziness, but when I think of Seshat with the keeper of records of time, I'm really starting to think about that reality that we know everything, we have access to everything, but do we have the awareness to be able to pull that in, or do we have the right tools or the maturity
yeah.
to have that out? So meditating with somebody of that, or meditating with that concept and asking Shishat to guide you, might start opening that into your collective consciousness.
Well, you're giving yourself permission to open up that information or be in resonance with that information, because that's
Yeah,
one thing too. Like when you're working with any like past life recall or being in resonance with something in general, you have to trust what is coming to you and you have to accept it. Like
yes,
even the story with segment, I had to say yes to the doors opening for that. And I think we have to do that within ourselves too.
yeah,
We
yeah,
all know we like there's nothing greater outside of ourselves than, what's within.
yeah,
We just have to give ourselves permission to accept it most of the time.
indeed. And keep asking those curious questions. And just, I just want to acknowledge Wade Woodruff, who's been putting some nice concepts out here. Just a reminder, collective, to hit the like button and notification bell. Thanks. Thank you, Wade. Appreciate your comments. Uh, you bring up something about the Ankh, and just to change the subject, we only got a few more minutes. Uh, in talking about that, the Ankh is the awakens the goddess. It's the
Mm.
key of life, everything. I know, just very few notes. I mean, how does
Well,
the Ankh work for you?
well, for me, it's the womb. So, and this isn't my concept alone, but when I was the big book that I'm writing, when I was
Mm-hmm.
given sort of the information, that was the symbol of the
Mm,
womb. And you can see it in the temples too. You can see in Hathor's face and how it's all represented. So when you access the womb energy, of course you're accessing the goddess energy, because that is, the ultimate feminine powerhouse. This is where we connect to our soul. This is where we connect to resonance. This is where we co-create from. This is our power center. So the Ankh to me is just a symbol of the womb.
mm, mm. I think you're bringing up more questions for me because I mean I keep using the Ankh for various things and it always works in so much a variety of magnitude that I always thought of it as a little bitty tool
Yeah.
with all of this. But now I'm starting to see uh, it's a power tool.
Yeah. Think of it as fertility itself, like as creation energy itself.
Hmm.
Um, creating energy itself. Yeah.
Wow. It's
It's a
very
key of,
interesting.
like key of life. So unlocking life force.
Wow.
Yeah.
It certainly is. It really gives you a perspective about the Egyptian gods and goddesses, or the goddesses, as a complete whole being with many parts, but you use the different goddesses to find what you need at that given time.
Yeah. It's aspects within ourselves. It's all the aspects that we contain. We're not separate from any of them. Some lay dormant sometimes. Some are activated at some time. Some we're being initiated into. But they're aspects within ourselves. create, whole being, a whole life.
Interesting. It's so good. And here we are in France, and they're always talking about Mary Magdalene being a sister of Isis, and I don't think, you know, ISIS mystery schools
Yeah.
and such. Has any of those perspectives, because we were both hearing these stories, what, 4 or 5 years ago when you're here? I can't even remember now. 4 years ago. Uh, how has that matured? How's that concept matured for you?
That's a big one. I believe Mary Magdalene. I have no way of proving this. I've really come to sit with the idea that I will never know. I'll never know what she would have said, or what she would have done, or what she would have, what her teachings necessarily really are. But I know within myself what draws me to her. But I believe that she was a human being. Obviously, she was a human being that mastered the Egyptian teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that was the teachings of Isis, whether that was the teachings of Hathor, whether that was the teachings of Neith, the goddesses of the bees, all of these things are so connected to what I believe her teachings were. And I think she had access to a lot of those teachings and was such a powerful human being that was just able to master them within
Wow.
her life and within her consciousness.
Well, I tell you, I am looking forward to October 9th when the
Thank
Four Gateways of the Goddess is released.
you.
That's October 9th, The Four Gateways of the Goddess by Corina Crysler, Awyan. You can get it on various online bookstores. And it's going to go into this. It's given me just, you know, in this short time, because you sent me a part of the book and I've read it. And I was just so excited to have this interview, and I'm more excited, and I hope everybody else is more excited about uh, all of what this is to offer. Um, I'm so grateful you've been on the show, Corina. And
Thank you for having me.
why don't you think of one last bit of wisdom? Also, you can catch Corina and have private sessions with her website, Corina Crysler, and that's CRYSLER, CorinaChrysler.com, and get a lot of great work from that way. Uh, you think of parting wisdom, and I will say that you have been listening to Corina Chrysler Ireland, and this show is Becoming Quantum Conscious. I am Bart Sharp, and you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 103.5 out of New Orleans. Next week, I'm going to be doing a solo show, unless something changes. Uh, and I might. I got an idea. It's kind of going to be fun, but all I can say is next week's show is going to be deep.
Mm.
Like you, I'm working on a book, or you're finishing book. I'm still editing and coming up with some bold concepts. So I'm going to spin one of those off. So what parting wisdom do you have? And you've got 20 seconds, I'm sad to say.
Well, in lieu of eclipse season, especially Pisces and Virgo, I guess the mantra I've kept to myself and is probably important for everyone is just set her free. That's what I keep hearing. Set her free, be yourself, cross this threshold of worrying and diminishing, who you are for other people, and just be free.
It's good wisdom. And we got to say goodbye. And we'll see y'all next week, everybody. Bye-bye.